All right, so today I'm going to do a guided practice, a ways of knowing practice. And I just want to let you know that if you're feeling more called to a silent practice, you're more than welcome to turn down your volume and just enjoy the group field here. So that's always an option. So the ways of knowing practice is a practice that helps us to connect to the various avenues through which we can connect with our moments. And it helps to break that tendency we have to only refer to the mind. We forget sometimes that we have a body and feelings and a heart and a soul and all of these different inputs that want to guide us towards a more authentic and a more aligned and connected life. And so to begin, I invite you to bring your attention down to the bottom half of your body. And you may have to remind yourself to do this several times because of that tendency to be up here in the thinking space. So we're not here to make thinking wrong. We're just here to balance it out with different perspectives from our being. So just bringing attention down to the lower half of the body. And you likely find that in time you begin to receive sensations from that part of your body, the feeling of your body touching the ground, the feeling of the weight of the body on the edge of the various body parts, the pressure that's created. You may even notice that with each exhale, there's a kind of a settling down, a deeper connecting just by a little bit each time. And just notice the simplicity of that, your body touching the body of the earth in direct physical contact. Be kind with yourself if you find yourself back in the stream of thoughts. And just simply come back. Come back, down and in. Give this particular part of your experience an opportunity to contribute. It's a subtle contribution, but a vital one. You are held, you are supported. You can let go. You can soften, you can let down, and still you are held. There's also a transmission of stillness that emanates from the ground through the sensory connection that reteaches us to find comfort in stillness, to find the strength that lies there, the inner knowing that streams from there. That's it. And then oftentimes connecting to ground in this way will naturally bring us to our next way of knowing, which is the breath. And I'm not talking about a mind knowing. So try not to interpret what you're experiencing as I take you through these ways of knowing with the mind's perspective. That will always be limited. We're opening to new territory here. So it's really important to then not add on the limited knowing of the mind. So we're just connecting to the breath exactly as it is without evaluating, just noticing its rhythm, however it's showing up. There's not a single way that you can breathe that would be wrong. The breath is happening in the context of our whole experience, individually and collectively. And so with humility, we simply open to the breath as it's showing up. And as we do, we may notice places that feel quite open, places that feel a little tight. The breath may feel long or short. And still, we simply observe in an intimate way. It's friendly. And you may already be noticing a difference in your experience just with these first two ways of knowing. Just by meeting ourselves as we are, it's very comforting for the body. And if we open particularly to the inhale, we can notice that the spine lengthens on the inhale, that the crown of the head maybe even feels more open energetically on the inhale. The body wants to expand to the front, to the back, to the sides, that it's moving into the space around us with that inhale. Energetically, that may give us a sort of sense of possibility, of new beginnings. And the breath quite organically leads us into the next way of knowing, which is the physical body. So the breath is being registered in the body as sensation, but it can also expand the lens of our awareness into other parts of the body that may not be so directly connected to the actual breath cycle. So you may notice tension in various areas, maybe the shoulders and the back of the neck, the belly, the hands. You may simultaneously notice that certain areas are starting to melt a little bit. So I'm just making suggestions, but always trust your own direct experience. And when we move into the physical body, generally, it's likely that we mainly feel the grosser sensations at first. Body leaning against something behind us, perhaps. The angle of our joints. Maybe obvious sensations in the digestive system. Hunger or fullness. And we're not analyzing any of this. We're not collecting any of this. We're just staying open to the stream of imprints that will move through when we consciously open to all of our ways of knowing. We don't add any meaning to any of these things. This is simply about expanding awareness and receiving with a beginner's mind. Notice how your body responds to being met in this way. You may even notice that subtler areas of your being, like the heart, begin to open and relax. When we're being evaluated or rejected constantly, it tends to create a closing in the system. But when we practice opening with this absolute availability to what's showing up, with a willingness to consider that our moment is perfect and there is not a molecule out of place, then it opens us to a whole new world. And once we are in the physical body, there's often, again, a quite natural movement towards subtler and subtler sensations, those that we might relate to our emotional body or our feeling body. The swirling in the belly, or the ball, tight ball in the throat, or the tension in the temples or the forehead, the heaviness in the heart, the lightness in the heart. And we may even find ourselves labeling these emotions or feelings, which is fine, but it can tend to lock us into what we already know about these feelings and emotions. And it's best to really open to them in such a way that we allow them to take us into a deeper connection and a deeper understanding. And so if you are labeling what you're feeling, fine, start there. But then explore, what does sadness feel like in my body? What does anger feel like in my body? What does anxiety or depression feel like in my body? What does joy feel like in my body? Love. So the exploration is ever fresh by not imposing our memories of what it is that we're currently experiencing. There's no need to force any of this. There's no need to dig for anything. We're simply following the guidance that's been given to open to the emotional realm. And the system takes over from there. And we kind of lean back as this intimate observer that simply makes itself available to whatever gets summoned forth. And there's even possibly this kind of sense of reverence for what gets drawn forth, for what this moment and our sincerity and our group energy has drawn to the surface to be acknowledged, to be welcomed back into the folds of the conscious experience so that it can be liberated into its true purpose, its true function, its true expression. And let's take a moment here as well, since it's no doubt making itself known, which is to acknowledge the way of knowing that we call the thinking mind, and to just notice how it's doing in the midst of this practice. Does it feel more relaxed? Does it feel sort of relieved that it doesn't have to take on the burden of figuring everything out? Does it feel a little frantic because it's not being given as much attention as usual? And just notice, just acknowledge the mind just as it is and let it be. And as we expand into all of these different ways of knowing, it's an inclusive process. So it's not like we're putting the breath behind or putting the physical body behind. It's like that's there, and there's also the feeling body, and there's also the mind, and. So consciousness has room for all of this, especially when we're allowing things to be as they are. Then there's this much more spacious presence that's available to us, which for today is going to be the final way of knowing that I invite you to rest into. So as you allow the breath and the body, the feelings, the mind to be as they are, all of the energy that's generally tied up in tending to these things begins to kind of settle back into the natural state, which is just openness, spaciousness, harmony. And so, for the final minutes of our time together today, I invite you to let yourself rest there as you continue to let the lens of awareness be very broad so that nothing is being excluded. And at the same thing, nothing is being hyper focused on. It's very generous. And things are allowed to come and go in their own time and in their own way. And so when we're resting in presence, see if you can let go of trying to understand it in favor of just sensing it. There's a feel to presence in your body, in your being. What does it feel like for you? And let yourself steep in that. Let yourself take it in, whether that be a sense of stillness or radiance, joy, peace. And let that be enough.